because you have to learn how to actually put the oar in something, catch the water, pull through the water, lift the oar out, because what will happen in a race is if you don't get that oar out of the water, it's called catching a crab, and it will stop that boat dead in the water. And then you have to start all over again and move up to your racing speed. Well, if you catch a crab, you're rarely going to continue to be able to win that race, because it will stop. I said, no, wait, it won't stop, but I actually observed one time, and I was amazed on how an 8 just stops dead in its tracks.
Bummer.
So, yeah, bummer is right, especially if you're one of the top teams. But, again, that's part of learning how to row on moving water, is to make sure you have that oar action that gets it out of the water, moves it back, pulls through.
Huh.
What's the top women's collegiate team in the country now?
I don't know who won it last year. I can't tell you. We just missed NCAAs, and they take about 16 teams. So we were a top 20 program last year.
Is that something like crazy 16 like a month, you know, when everybody's rowing?
Well, there's a fall season. And in the fall season, we actually will race on the river, and it's timed, okay? So we'll set up buoys, and you will release a shell every 30 seconds. And so they start over near Crandick Park, and then just finish right over here, and then that gives them time to turn around before they get to the dam area. And it's all based on time. Then, in the spring season, it's head-to-head competition. So that's when we would race out on the reservoir, and it's all timed, and it's for a certain distance. And as an example, our training has improved dramatically. This a couple of weeks ago, right before we opened the facility, the women pulled for 6,000 meters on an erg machine, and one of our novice timed or completed that in one of the fastest times to be 3rd or 4th on the all-time race. So our training obviously has improved as well, but they were able to race up here. So I think part of the motivation was we actually have a nice space as well to row in and stuff. So.
And you're thinking metric, that's very good.
They have to, in rowing.
Yes!
In rowing. I can't help them, but you know, that's what they do up on the ergs.
You guys in architecture?
on October 25th, I do, right?
Yeah. Are you guys metric too in architecture yet?
No.
Oh. All right. All right, just checking.
When you were beginning the initial designs of this building, what were some of the things you asked for from your architects?
First of all, what was fun is this tour that Tim was talking about, we toured 9 boathouses in 2 days. So we set it up by making connections with the people that I knew out on the East Coast. We went to Mandy and said, Mandy is our head coach, and said, whose boathouse do you want to see? Well, the one she wanted to see was Princeton's, but Princeton wasn't within this geography that we could see in 2 days, because that's literally all we had. So one of the things that we said is it must be a functional facility. We had limited resources. We had just received a $1 million gift by the person who you see on this building, which is, she's a former student athlete of ours, Sue Beckwith. She's a physician in Des Moines. But she too is a rower. So she wanted this building to be, hi guys, wanted to be very functional. The other thing that we wanted is we wanted a tank where we could row at racing speed. And so you guys have never designed a tank, and we were trying to figure out how do we get this done? Because they've never designed a tank, and so we didn't know what resources we had yet. So we're into that. So it was functionality. We knew that we'd have to limit it by square footage simply because of the money we had available. So to ask the architects, it was how do you build a very functional building? We started out with 3 bays. We now have 4. And we needed a tank, the erg room, and a locker room. So those were the spaces that were really critical to our coach. That's why when you tour this facility, we don't have a lot of gathering space. We have room for the clubs, because then our recreational services came on board and said, what if we pay, will you build additional space so we can use it as well? We said yes. So that gave us about an additional $1 million, because we started out as a $5 million facility. So that made it a $6 million facility. So we just kept looking at it. The main things were functionality, storage, which is 3 bays, a tank where you can row at racing speed, have the erg room, have a locker room.
Can I have you elaborate on function?
The bays.
Yes, functionality would have to do with, excuse me, I'll just throw it here, but thank you. Functionality had to do is based on the flow. From a workout perspective, Mandy wanted to be able to go from tank to erg to locker room with very few steps.
Okay.
And to the base.
Slow down.
Okay.
So tank to erg to locker room.
I used to teach, so this is good. They wanted to move from the tank, the erg room, the locker room in a very efficient, with very few steps, and also to the bays. And so the connectivity parts that you will see were what the architects took to make that work. And there's a couple of really fun things that Mandy didn't really think about that really work. And we have connectivity between the tank and the erg room, so she can actually get them running to and, not running, but go to and from. And for her, it's efficient to get to 2 spaces at once, knowing that she has a large squad.
Wait, one question, a clarifying question. When you say bay, you mean like where the
Storage bays.
shells are stored,
Storage
right?
bays, yes.
And so how many shells per bay?
It depends on what you're storing, whether you're storing an 8, 4, 2, or 1.
Right.
So from that perspective, I can't tell you how many are in there.
All right, good. Well, can we?
But we'll see 'em.
All right, good,
We'll
good.
take you through the whole thing. We
You
do.
guys spread rumors, all right?
Hey, Mandy, how are you? Say hello to the Iowa State architectural students.
Welcome.
Mandy Cole, our head coach.
All right.
Guys,
Hey.
What were some of the things you asked the architects when you built wanted it in the facility?
Functionality, #1. I didn't care about cathedral ceilings or, I just wanted it to flow from one place to the next really nicely, and just because we're gonna want it to be super user friendly.
Can I have a question? Since most of us are ignorant about rowing, when you say flow from one place to another, is this a sequence of events that you do while you're training on a daily basis? Like, let's say I'm coming in to train one day.
It's basically, we've got the tank room here. That's a good question. The tank room, and then we've got the rowing room with the rowing machines, and we've got the bays. And so you'll be able to go from one of those to the other easily. So, like, one of the nice features here is we've got a way to get up this way out of the tank room, and we've got that staircase over there. So in rowing, you have lots of numbers. So I'll have a group up there of, let's say, 30 or 40 athletes, and then we've got a group down here of 30 athletes, and we want to go from one to the other. One can come down the stairs over there, and come up the stairs over here, and so we can use less time instead of falling on each other or running into each other.
I wasn't lying to you, see? It's funny because I had just said that, and then it's funny that it came out of you. So an administrator listening to the coach.
Cool.
Which is important.
Yay.
But I think that says something with regards to, that we won't keep you. But it's one of those where it is about listening because Mandy's not in all those meetings. I'm the one representing our athletic department in the meetings with the architects. But it was good for Mandy to be on those trips because she pointed out little things on how the concrete should be brushed so the bays can actually be cleaned out easy. Little things. And people that we went on tours with said, this is really important. Don't have this too rough, but it has to be rough a little bit so you don't slip and slide when it's wet because you're dealing with water. Go ahead.
So this is really a case where your client often knows the design better than you do to some extent. Do you have time to answer any questions?
Sure.
Anybody have any questions for Mandy?
Yes, one Nick.
So this is mainly designed predominantly because it's a women's rowing team here. So is it mostly women who are working out here? The facility we're designing for is going to be
Mixed.
men and women.
Would there be any differences between a
Say like just a
facility for
men and
women?
women's locker room also?
Well, they have, the nice thing here is that there's a club, there's club locker rooms. They're smaller because it's a club and they're just not as big as we are. But just knowing the sport of rowing, it's pretty nice for a club because a lot of club places don't have this. So there's a male and a female little locker room. So I wouldn't change the design per se in here just because we have different sexes.
Right.
You know, predominantly we're in here and the club has that bay, but for the most part I wouldn't change it.
You're still going to have an erg room, you're still going to have a tank, and all it might be is a pulling angle on the rigger might be slightly different because of larger pulling angles.
Yeah.
Would that be a good statement maybe?
Well, not
Okay,
if it's
I'm
at club
sure.
level, if it doesn't go to varsity,
Okay.
it wouldn't change so much.
Okay.
If you only have $1 million to spend, what are you going to spend it on?
Well, one of the things I think, you know, you have to have a place to store your boats. You have to have a place to be able to do your rowing machines. The tank is kind of icing on the cake. I mean, you're not going to get that if you have $1 million. It's too hard, it's too much, and you have to really prioritize. We were at a boathouse out in Connecticut.
Yeah.
$250,000. They did a lot with the facility. They had bay storage. It was ready for floods, and they were able to rent out the top space, which they